Part of the Solution podcast, hosted by me, Natalie Damiano. Join me for a discussion on all things health, wellness, fitness, parenting, and more, all with a healthy dose of humor. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Part of the Solution podcast. I have one of my newest girlfriends and former business coach, Felicia Romero here. Thanks so much for coming.
Hello. I am so excited to be here. Congrats on the podcast. This is so exciting.
I couldn't have done it without you.
Well, mainly because I know you have such a powerful story and what you have to share with the world needs to get out there. And it starts with just hitting record and having a conversation. So here we are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. There's been, and I'm sure you feel the same, a bazillion conversations where you're like, this should have been a podcast episode, or we should have been recording this the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I can't tell you how many times. And that's such a caveat because I host so many different in-person intimate events. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll plan for the recording and we get amazing content that way. And then sometimes I just have a really candid conversation with a guest speaker. And then afterwards I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so good. I wish it was a podcast. And then part of me is like, no, the women in the room got to experience that. And that's what they paid to be there for. And they got to get that golden nugget. And so sometimes it's like a catch-22, I want to share this. And then sometimes we just want to keep it really precious and sacred. So
yeah, sometimes the kitchen's got to be closed, girl.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So tell my listeners just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you sort of the quick story. So I grew up in a really athletic household. I played softball at Arizona State, always been in sports. And so when I was studying for law in college, I took
Time out. Studying for law?
Yeah. So
I know this.
I don't know. Did you?
I don't know.
I have my bachelor's in political science and I was actually an intern. Sorry, I'm a little cold. I'm going to put this jacket on. I was an intern at the House of Representatives. So I'm a poli-sci major and I took my LSAT. I was full blown going to law school. Ally McBeal was I used to watch Ally McBeal when I was in high school. I'm I want to do that.
I love
also was Mexican background. I was a first to graduate from college, even to get a degree in my family. And my mom really used, for her, it was you're only successful if you have this really sought after career, like a lawyer, like a nurse, like a doctor. And I knew medical was not my thing, but I loved speaking and I was always really good at talking back to my mom. Yeah. So you're going to be a lawyer. So, it was kind of one of those things where I was sort of pushed into it. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
If you want to be respected and if you want to be, looked at as this really important person, you have to do these things. And so, yeah, I took my LSAT for law school. And I remember when I was applying to law school, I had already started training people, personal training people. I had a boyfriend at the time that was a gym manager. And he's oh, you're going to school. You should become a trainer. You could make your own schedule. And that was really a pivotal moment in my life, being with that person who introduced me to personal training. Now, not knowing where it was going to take me, I literally didn't even think about the future. I was really in the moment of what I was doing. And I was oh my gosh. And I remember this really pivotal moment of I was training people. I was also a junior at Arizona State. I was taking my LSAT for law school. I got a really good grade. I got a really good score and my GPA was fantastic. And I was also Latina woman. So I probably could have gotten some sort of grant or federal aid. And at the time, I remember thinking, I don't want to do this. This is not. And I remember also interning with a family member, a second, third cousin. If you're Mexican, you have many cousins. And she was someone that introduced me to someone oh, here, you can intern at this place. It was a regional law firm in downtown Phoenix. And, you can kind of get your feet wet and see what it's like. And everyone was miserable in the law firm. They were working off their student loans. They were associates that were working 60 plus hours a week. And it just didn't interest me. And I'm God, I really love training people. I really feel like I have this natural ability to teach and coach and help. Yeah. And so decided not to go to law school. And the hardest part of that was telling my mom that that's not what I was going to do, because I was very much the kind of person that did not like to let people down. Oftentimes I did things to the detriment of myself to please others. Yeah. And so, you know, it was that pivotal moment where I decided to just kind of like change course.
How was that conversation with your mom?
You know what? My mom didn't get it at first. She got it years later, but she didn't get it at first because she still very much had it in her head that like, you have to go to college and you have to do these things in order to be successful. And the reason why I think she thought that is because we didn't have entrepreneurs in our family. Like, I didn't grow up knowing how to write a business plan. We didn't, you know, very much living in the scarcity mindset for years, like that we can't afford that. Or, you know, my mom did make money, but we never had enough. You know what I mean? It was always like, I got to work really hard to make money. And, you know, my mom didn't know any other way. So like, our parents only know what they know, right? They can only teach us with the tools that they have. And so, you know, I never thought in a million years, like I would be a business owner, but I also knew like, oh, I can do this. Like, I don't really want to work for anyone. And honestly, I'm going to be totally honest. I'm going to be 42 this year. And I started training people out of my home when I was in college. This was like 2021, opened up my first gym at 22. I've never worked for anybody. I've never had a W-2. I've always literally had to hustle. And there were, in that 25-year period, I think that's how long it's been, like there's been the great moments of financial success. And there's been like really low moments where I've had even my car repossessed. Yeah. But I've never had a job. I've always like figured it out. And so yeah. So that's kind of like that time, college time. And then fast forward throughout that 13, 14 years, I opened up 3 gyms during the course of that time, selling my last gym in 2017. Again, when I think back at like, oh, wow, Felicia, you opened up these amazing gyms. Like, I was so focused on the vision that the how didn't even matter. Like I didn't have liquid funds to open up a $250,000 studio, but I found it. I got really resourceful. And what's crazy about this, and this is why I do believe the power of visualization and manifestation, but also like not leaning into, I can't do this, or this isn't possible for me, really leaning into, well, how could it be possible? Yeah. What would need to happen? What kind of conversations do I need to have? And the more I leaned into that, the more I started talking about my dream of the last gym that I owned, money became available. An investor showed up, was like the opportunity for an angel investor to come in happened. And that would never have happened if I was in the I can't do this mentality, or this isn't possible.
And how did you know about that mentality at that age? Or was that just this intuition? Or because I think for a lot of people in their 20s, as you know, we're just like consuming and trying to grow, and neurologically, like we're not even there yet. And we're trying different things, and we're screwing up and all the things, which obviously you're just riding the wave, which you did. But how did you, like, where was that shift of like, I'm just going to make it happen because why not?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think about this often, like where did this come from? Because back then I really didn't dabble into personal development. I wasn't reading these like books on money manifestation or mindset. Huh. It wasn't even a thing. Like when I started these things, there was no social media besides, I remember I had like a MySpace account. And so honestly, it was just, I think just this internal drive and this like figure it out energy. And I don't know, I do feel like things have shifted now. I'm like on the latter end of millennial. You know, I never went back home and lived with my mom again. I just kind of like bootstrapped a lot of these things and just started these things and put myself in situations. But I think for me, I do think my naivete, like being naive, really allowed me to like think about the possibilities because I didn't know what I didn't know. But I also was really into like this vision of what my life could be. And I could see it so clearly. Like I'm very much a visionary. Like I love to daydream as I'm driving, and I can like visualize like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. Oh, I would love to, like, I could see myself picking up my mom at her house and taking her to go get her a new car and like surprising her with this thing on Christmas Day. Like I can literally see it in my brain.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think it was just something always innately inside of me.
Yeah. And maybe it was part of what you had lack of when you were young and how your mom was, that really was the driving force, or even anger, or just like, that's not going to be me, that like push that dream forward.
And maybe too, as I'm thinking about it, when you mentioned my mom, she was resourceful. She was resourceful with what she had, meaning, she gave her daughters, me and my middle sister, and then my third sister came a little later, things that she didn't have. And she didn't ever make us think, even though like there were times where like, oh my gosh, we can't afford that. I remember even like, I know this is like so cringe to say, but like, I didn't love where I lived. I didn't love where I grew up. I would make my friends drop me off down the street because I was embarrassed about my house, because I was so fascinated by these people that lived in these like homes with pools, and like, oh my gosh, you have a computer? Like, what is that like? Like, I didn't grow up with a computer,
How do you
had one bathroom.
Yeah.
No dishwasher. Still to this day, I wash my own dish because I just have never used a dishwasher and I didn't grow up with one. And so like, I just, my mom was very resourceful. And so maybe I did see that subconsciously in getting us things and being able to bring forth like opportunities, like, as far as like even sports. I got to play on some really great teams because my mom decided to get a second job so that she could pay for the equipment that I was going to need to be on that team. And because I was in those leagues and doing travel softball, I had the opportunity to play in college. Like my mom did that as a single parent. So maybe subconsciously I did see that resourcefulness in her that allowed it to kind of, rub off on me.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like it. I think for me personally, the same thing. I've learned a lot from my parents, and maybe I've learned some good things and some bad things, but definitely saw a lot of what I didn't want to repeat or what I wanted to change. And I think a lot of us have that same story. Our parents, that generation, just didn't have a lot of money. Yeah. The existence of Disneyland and money and cell phones and all of that was far away from, I think, a lot of us. And to be honest, the more entrepreneurs I speak to, the more of that like bare bones foundation they really had. It just seems like it's this prerequisite to own your own business. Well, you had to have gone through this or that, or had nothing. You've had to completely start over, so that you've got nowhere else to go but up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So bringing it back to like the gym. So open up my gym, sold my last gym in 2017 to pivot into the online space. And to be honest, and I can go into all of that. I'll kind of brush over it lightly because I feel like it's an important part of the story. But my last gym I opened because it was really, and this is again, a lot of dismantling that I've had to do over the years of people pleasing, perfectionism, and what I feel I want the world to know about me. Okay. So I'll back up and explain what that means. So I was always very much needed external validation. I needed to be told I was doing well. I needed the accolades. I needed to be first place. I needed to like be at the top and getting these things. And I feel like to some degree, it came naturally to me. I ended up being in those positions to where I did win the thing and I would get the opportunities to be on covers of magazines. But then that became my identity. Yeah. And very much became this like what people perceived of me as successful, even though maybe inside I didn't quite embody that. And I'll tell you what I mean by that with a small example. So this specific story, I would go to these family functions and I would carry my food. I would go hang out with friends and I would bring my Tupperware. And to the outer world, I ate perfect. I was like, oh my gosh, Felicia, you're so disciplined. Oh, you're getting ready for your next show. Oh my gosh, you're just so like, I wish I could do that. You're so this, you're so that. But little did they know, I went home by myself to binge eat on a dozen cookies, right? It was like this lie, this like false narrative I was living in order for others to perceive me a certain way. So there's the context. So like my third gym that I opened, it was called Fit Method. I had it for about 4 years, almost 5. Amazing gym. Like to this day, I still get messages from women. To this day, actually, there are still women who are still connected because of that gym and are like lifelong friends. The culture that was built and the energy and what I built there was amazing. What we all built there was amazing. Special. But I opened up that gym as a response to me being bought out of another gym that I opened that I had a partner to, and there was like legal battles and it was ugly. And I had signed a 1-year non-compete because I do believe they felt a little threatened by me. And, you know, after that 1-year non-compete, I was like determined to open up another gym. And you know, when you are doing something, there's a difference between doing it because it is your purpose, it is your passion. There's another reason doing things for validation and doing things for the benefit of how people are going to see you and perceive you.
Yeah, it's ego driven.
Totally ego driven.
Yeah.
And it became very clear in like year 3 and 4 that this is not what I wanted to do, even though, you know, helping people was like a big driving force of mine. And so I had to come to the conclusion that, you know, this isn't for me. I sold the gym in 2017, but, you know, it's been for me these last seven years now since that, a lot of dismantling of the who I think I am and what I want people to think of me, and doing things because I truly want to do them. And it is my purpose. It is my, you know, soul driven purpose. And there's been a lot of discernment with that. And, you know, and that's again, just me sharing very vulnerably and candidly, like things that I've had to dismantle in myself.
Yeah.
And that is what now I hope I embody, but also teach other women, because
I think it's hard to make those changes. It really, you know, you've got to put in the work. I think everything sounds so easy. Somebody looking at your lifestyle is, oh, you're lucky or this or that. But the truth is, and I know this because I know you and you know me and we know each other's stories, there's a lot of hard work, like a daily practice to get to that place.
Yeah.
And from outsider looking in, or somebody who's experienced like a retreat with you, business coaching with you, and has just gotten to know you, that is what you're putting out there. So if you ever had any doubt, don't, because that's, you're doing it. Like you're walking the walk, you're talking the talk. So obviously I know you're going to keep pushing forward. You're going to keep going and growing into the next phase of whatever this may be for you, but you're embodying what you're wanting to. So I want to say to you, like, congratulations for getting there. I know it's so hard to get to that place. And like, even though I've only known you for a little bit, I'm so proud of you and so proud of the work that you've done and the personal development to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Thank you. I received that. Something that makes me think of is like, you know, I don't need to necessarily, and I hope those that are listening right now are also able to step into this, but instead of like announcing the thing, or instead of like working yourself up to like, oh, I'm going to do this thing, we have to just do it. Right. And that's where embodiment comes in order to truly be embodied energy and whatever it is that you're doing, we have to just get up and do the thing. Right. So I'm all for, and this is, I guess, for me, the era of like less announcements and more like I'm effing doing it. Like I'm in it, and you're going to see me show up, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what is Felicia doing? Like, oh my gosh. Like I'm no longer in that like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't need to like announce to the world. I'm just in it and I'm doing it. Yeah, right. And so
in silence.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of where I am now.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of my questions I was going to ask you, and I feel like we've been talking about it the whole time, was basically like, how did you find your inner peace and who did you have to become to get there? Which I feel like you just spoke on. You know, you were this person who was more maybe self-serving or ego-driven, like we all are at a young age, and especially somebody in the platform that you were at. Like that seems like it's right on track, right, versus who you are now is totally different than that. I mean, there's probably some similarities, but I'm sure you feel the same as me. Like I'll be 42 this year as well. I'm so different than when I was 32.
Yeah.
Versus who I am today.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Inner peace. I truly believe inner peace is the new success. It's this like amazing. And I want to just credit this to embodiment of this feminine energy that I've been able to create these last couple of years. And so, it really is. So when I talk about masculine and feminine energy, it really comes from a place of it's not a gender stereotypes. There's no gender assigned to these energies. It's truly just an energy.
Yeah.
And so the way that I like to talk about it is like the masculine is the doing and the feminine is the being. And so I know how to do. If you tell me like, Felicia, we're going to launch this thing in 6 months and here's the goal and here's like our income goal and this is how many people we need in it, I have no problem doing. Okay, give me a good launch strategy. I will implement that. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the thing. But there's a difference between doing that and like how you are when you are doing it, who you are when you're in it. And so I'll give you an example, like let's say launching this thing. I'm very much in the masculine energy of launching the next offer, of showing up on social media, of having a sales page and having, sales conversations. But what happens when someone ghosts you in the DMs? What happens when you don't hit the goal of the launch number that you set out, which is very masculine, but who are you when that you don't hit the goal? Yeah. Who are you when someone says no? It's who are you? What is your state of being? Do you still have trust? Are you surrendered? Are you showing up from a place of compassion versus desperation? And so there's a difference in that. So I've had to learn how to embody and have those feminine qualities and assets. And the way that I would even describe it in a quote is, being stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your methods. And the flexibility comes from the feminine, being flexible, being fluid. I want you to think of like, water, and so it like a stream versus the masculine as the raging river, so I had to learn how to be still in the stream. I had to learn how to be surrendered. And that comes from a lot of different things. I know people are wondering like how, like, just give me the how. And I know we all want to know the how, but it really is this journey of self-discovery, of finding what works for you. Because I can say like, oh, well, goddess yoga really helped with that. And cultivating really deep friendships has helped with that. But, you might need something different, right? And so I can give you the tools and tell you what to do, but we all know how that goes. Sometimes people just don't do the thing. We really have to find what's going to work for us. Yeah. And so for me, it's adding some of those modalities that help me tap back into my body and myself. That includes breath work. That includes sound healing. I've done all the different modalities from energy healing all the way to hypnosis. And what I found with all the modalities is what helps me the most is being in my body. Yeah. This is why like a walking meditation I'd rather do than like a sitting meditation. I like to walk around my neighborhood and think. I like to tap into my sacral chakra when I'm doing goddess yoga. So all of these things I've realized in myself has really helped me tap into that.
Yeah. And I think when I was a guest on your podcast, we talked a little bit about like tapping into Mother Nature and actually like grounding and feeling Mother Nature and getting reconnected with that. I am the same. I would rather be walking or doing something physical than sitting, but that's definitely a way to do it. I love kind of just regrounding myself. And I love that you took a moment to explain the difference between feminine and masculine energy. That's a new term for me. I think I had heard it thrown around a little bit, but then when I came to Arizona for your mastermind, it was really like talked about, just like really dug and ground into me, where I was like, okay, that's like, those are those feelings. Those are those pulls in the different directions. And I think a lot of people maybe don't know that. Another thing I took away from what you were saying, and this is my experience as well, is little tangible things. I think with change, when you're transitioning into this person you want to be, it's little things, because life is busy. We can all get so overwhelmed by everything. And I think just picking up little tidbits is is the right way to change. That's when you're going to get longevity. It's like nutrition. You can't just go full bore, no carb, whatever. You're just going to lose a bunch of weight and then gain it back. It's like these little macronutrients, but this is like neurologically in the brain. It's just these little bite-sized pieces that makes things so much more doable, and you're going to get longevity out of it. And I've experienced the same. Yeah.
That's such great advice. I'm glad that you said that, because it can feel very overwhelming for people. And this is why small wins are so important.
Yeah.
Small, tiny habits are literally like, think of like, when we think about this and we think about like these small habits that are like adding up over time, it creates big results, right? Yeah. And so, I remember I just went to a retreat a couple of weeks ago in California. And one of the things at the very end of the retreat when we were journaling is, write down one thing that you can accomplish, that you can focus on right now, that is going to move the needle closer to what you felt this weekend. It was called the Expanders Retreat. And it was like, what is like one thing that you can implement right now? What's a small win? And it can be so minuscule, like literally 5-minute breath work in the morning, right? And something that you can just like anchor in what you went through that weekend so that you can take home with you, because it can all feel very overwhelming to integrate. And so I love that you mentioned that, the small bite-sized things that you can do right now that really just help to propel us into these big changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of bite-sized, I know that you are a fan of intuitive eating. Yeah. And I know that there's going to be a lot of people listening that want to kind of hear about that, because for some people that be like, oh, I just intuitively want chips and this and that. And it's, all the crap. And that doesn't really make sense. I think a lot of us identify with like all or nothing, or black and white, or, I've had the same thing. This, girl, fuck it. Just eat it all. Let's do it all. And so I would love just your journey and your thoughts on intuitive eating.
I love this question, because you're right. It gets a bad rap. Like, oh, wow, if I just intuitively ate, I would eat a box of donuts every day. And here's the caveat. That is false, because you're going to get tired of eating that thing, right? You're going to be like, okay, I don't want another donut. And this is coming from someone that did reality TV, where I had to gain weight intentionally for my sister. And I had to eat all the things, like all the bad foods, the same foods my sister was eating. I promise you it gets old. And this is along the line of a type of therapy called exposure therapy. Okay. So when we think about exposure therapy of people who struggle, now I was never diagnosed with an eating disorder, but I had disordered eating. Okay. So again, I was never diagnosed with bulimia, anorexia, or any of the different disorders that are connected with eating. I just had a lot of disordered eating. And so I was afraid to eat certain foods. And I was afraid I had the all in or all out mentality. I was a competitor for almost 9 years. So I had some messed up thoughts around food. So when I found intuitive eating, I was coming out of a place of really restrictive dieting and, looking at food as good, bad, right, or wrong. Okay. There was no middle ground. Like if I would look like salad was good, donuts were bad. Like that's where my mindset was. Right. And the reason why diets fail and why that sort of mentality will actually lead us down the wrong path when it comes to food is because what happens when things are taboo? What happens when we tell ourselves that we can't have something, we can't eat or enjoy something? We're going to want it even more, right? I remember during those times, I was wanting types of foods that I never really ate before, but I wanted it because it was like this like taboo food, this like forbidden food that I couldn't eat. And the longer you restrict yourself, the more you're going to want it. And the more likely you are to then binge on it, which then can turn into a really bad pattern of yo-yo dieting, which I would say a good percentage of Americans struggle with. And so the intuitive eating is really this thought pattern around food and listening to your internal body signals. So when you're listening to your internal body signals, before, the Felicia who didn't listen to herself would eat so much to where she was sick at the end of the meal, right? Or on the complete opposite end, was not eating enough to where I was hungry all of the time and I was thinking about food. Now, intuitive eating is right in the middle. And when we allow ourselves to intuitive eat and gravitate towards foods that, again, attach no moral code to it, it's not good or bad, right or wrong, but what do I really feel like today? What you'll realize is you'll start to gravitate towards foods that allow us to feel good, to be productive, and to honor our internal body cues. Like, oh, okay, if we were to look at a scale of 1 to 10, 7 or 8 feeling satisfied, we're going to know that I'm going to eat to where I'm satisfied. I don't eat now. I don't know the last time that I've binge ate. It's been years and years and years, because I've been able to trust my internal body cues. And so back to exposure therapy. So if you are coming off of this place of, oh, I don't eat this, I don't eat that, you look at food as good and bad, I want you just to expose yourself to the foods that you once, quote unquote, did not allow yourself to eat. Okay. So that might be the candy or the donuts or the pizza. And I want you just to allow yourself to eat them and not stop yourself, just let yourself go through this process of figuring out what you enjoy and what you don't. And what you'll realize is you're going to get pretty tired of those donuts on day 3. You're not even going to want to see a donut. You're not even going to want to see a Snickers bar. Okay. And I only know this because I've done it and I've had hundreds of clients that have done this as well. And so intuitive eating is then now gravitating towards what you naturally are going to like. And now that I've done this for years now, I don't diet. I gravitate towards foods that I know are going to help me be productive, allow me to feel good. I knew I had podcasts today. I had long conversations that I'm having today. I need to be energized and productive. I'm not going to be bogged down by eating 4 donuts in the morning because intuitively I chose to eat that. Like, no, like my body's going to gravitate towards things that are going to help me feel good. And the more that you start trusting yourself, the easier it's going to be. It's really this, like, you get to this level of just self-trust. And so that's intuitive eating in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of that when it comes to what I choose to listen to, and whether or not I go to the gym or not. There are definitely mornings where I wake up. I'm an early bird and I want to be at the gym at 5:30 or 6 a.m. And so majority of the time the alarm goes off and I'm like, oh, and I immediately think about how I could get out of it, and that lasts like literally 2 seconds. And then something kicks in and says, Natalie, you're going to have such a better day if you go to the gym. Like, everything is going to go your way and you're going to kill it if you go to the gym. And then I get my ass up and I go.
Yes.
So I think we have that like internal dialogue. And I think the same with food, like eventually, and I have struggled with food and yo-yo and this and that. And I have such a sweet tooth and restricting and binging and restricting, that whole train that I think majority of women go on, whether they have a eating disorder or not. And
this is something I would recommend, and I'm going to have a little asterisk next to this. Intuitive eating, if you don't struggle with food, if you're just kind of like living your life and you naturally make good choices and you're naturally this way and you don't really struggle with food, or you're not thinking about it 24/7, or it's not taking a ton of energy for you to like figure out what your day is going to look like with food, or maybe you're not obsessing over what you ate, then maybe intuitive eating isn't for you. Maybe you love to count calories. Maybe you love to count macros, or maybe you love certain types of meal plans or ways to eat. Then that's not for you. But if you have struggled with the yo-yo, with the all in or all out mentality, or you've noticed your weight has fluctuated so much, like I could literally gain weight like 20 pounds in a couple months because I was such a really horrible binge eater. Then, intuitive eating might be something to look into, especially if you struggle with that. But then some women don't struggle at all with food, and then that's okay too, but this is really for those people, those women who struggle with, and maybe you find yourself spending a lot of time thinking about food, thinking about what you're going to eat, thinking about the last meal you just ate. And I can only talk about that because that was me. Like, it took up so much of my energy and time. Think about that time and energy that can be spent towards playing with your kids, towards a new hobby, towards your side hustle, towards a passion, towards learning a new skill, versus spent on what you're eating and what you're not eating.
Oh, it's an exhausting hamster wheel. And I'm sure there's so many women out there that have that same just mindset where it just keeps going and going, that obsession. And I think it starts at a young age. This will be a whole nother podcast, but just our food industry and how things are and what's get pushed out and all of the unhealthy things and fast food and all of the things we shouldn't be eating and how that just kind of gets subconsciously like put in front of our face.
100%.
That was definitely my experience growing up. And then those play into adulthood. You know, I just have to say our kids are going to have it so well because we're so much more informed, and we're just think about like how your mom and your life growing up motivated you to become this Felicia that you are right now. You know, like you're just a freight train and you're killing it and you're doing everything that you want to do. And think about this, like Rylan and how he's going to be because of you and Keith and his mom, or, you know, like just having you guys as role models.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
so great.
Possible. Yeah, it's awesome. It's so awesome. He's seeing what's possible. I can see his little like wheels turning when he's doing certain things, or even like seeing us in business, or when we go check on the rental houses that we have. And he's like, you know, kind of, you know, curious and asking questions about it. And it's really neat to see. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, what is one of your closest relationships in your life and why?
My closest relationships besides family. I would say, well, of course, my mom, she's my best friend, but besides family, I would say my closest relationship, the person that I feel, and besides Keith, because I live with him, but I want
to say that anyway.
I know. That's like a given. That's a given. We're like, you know, all things. He's my lover. He's my everything.
Yep.
You know, I want to mention a girlfriend because I do believe, and I want to say this because I do believe that, you know, women have a hard time cultivating really deep connection over the age of 40. You know, I think women have maybe gone through things. Maybe sometimes women get married and sort of like forget about their girlfriends, or maybe, and this is something that I've experienced with the women that I work with, is they start to grow apart from their friends, right? They start growing in a different direction because their life is heading towards a different direction. Maybe it's entrepreneurship, maybe it's personal development, and they're no longer interested in the things that their current friends are interested in. So my friend Annette is someone that I would say I'm the closest to in terms of, you know, someone that I can be super vulnerable with, someone that we've had disagreements and fights, but we've also been able to like overcome it. And that really like feels like sister energy, right? Because, you know, hey, you know, like if you're getting a fight with your sister, you're still going to love her. And so we've been able to like have this very conscious relationship around our goals and our dreams. And she's also someone that I'm running with as well, because she's doing really big things in her life and building like this multi-million-dollar tech company with her husband. Like we're sort of like running together in this trajectory, like no one's being left behind. And so it's been really amazing to like share that with her, not only in business, but she's someone that I'm truly doing business and life with. And it's pretty amazing to have cultivated that relationship in my 30s, now into my 40s. And so we met when I was in my mid 30s, and it's just our relationship has gotten so much stronger because of it.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
And it's important. I think it's so important for women to have these deep connections with sisters. You know, I know so many women that have like sister wounds, that don't trust women, that feel, you know, not safe around women, safe to share their dreams or their vulnerabilities for the fear of it being used against them later on, you know? So I think it's really important to cultivate that for sure.
I think we judge ourselves, so we assume people are going to judge us the same. And so we're not vulnerable around women as much as, at least for me, as much as I am around men. I'm much more comfortable around men than I am women. And that's something definitely that I've struggled with. What do you think Annette would say about you? If she was here and she jumped in on that podcast, which I would love her to, because I freaking love that woman.
She would just come in like a light. Like she would just come in and like, oh my gosh, babes, I just love her so much. Like she has no problem. She loves words of affirmation. That's her love language. She's also really good at giving words of affirmation. She writes really amazing birthday cards and like that are long and very thoughtful. So I think she would come in and she would say the same. She would just be so grateful that we were doing this business and life together, that we're growing together, that we've cultivated this friendship together. And, I think she would say all the same things I would say about her.
Yeah. Is she your pickleball girlfriend?
Yeah, definitely my pickleball girlfriend, for sure. Yes, absolutely.
What do you think that your best asset as a friend or partner is?
Best asset as a friend or partner. I would definitely say loyal and trustworthy. Absolutely loyal. I would speak positively in a room full of people. Like if I saw an opportunity, I would share that person. I would share her or share him.
Yes.
And I'm definitely trustworthy. I can keep a secret. If you tell me something, I'm keeping that secret and I will not tell anyone. I think that's a quality I got from my mom because it's so funny because I've obviously have two sisters and my middle sister was going through something and had shared something with my mom. My mom never talked to me about it. I had no idea that my sister was going through that. And, for many parents, they'll talk to their other kid about whatever this kid is going through. And so my mom, she is so loyal in that way. You tell her something and she keeps it. She keeps it. And so that's something that I think I got from her for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about dreams. What's on the horizon for you? What is that emotionally? Where do you see yourself? Physically, where do you see yourself? Talk to me.
Hopefully on a farm with a no-kill animal shelter and just surrounded by dogs. That was, if I win the lottery, there will be signs. I don't know if you've ever seen that quote.
Oh, I love those ones.
If I win the lottery, there will be signs. There's just 100 dogs. No, in 10 years from now, I will be, oh my gosh, I will be living my best life. I will be traveling around the world. I will feel so abundant. I will be living on all of my passive revenue. I will hopefully be raising dogs still and possibly raising my own child. And also Rylan, because Rylan will be 18 by that point. Keith and I are traveling, we're playing sports, we are seeing the world, and we're living off of our passive income. So
would you stay living where you're at now, or would you want?
Maybe. We're not married to this house. If we were to sell it, there is a huge advantage, a huge opportunity for profit, but I don't know. We'll see. It is quite big. I don't see us here forever, our forever home, but also Keith has a hard time selling his houses as well. So who knows, but definitely homes in other places to where I could visit and stay. We're looking at probably this year, the end of this year, home in Sedona, into an Airbnb, but also to have, to be able to live up there for 3 months out of the year, and other places as well. So we'll see. But we're definitely
weather can be quite different there, correct?
Oh yeah. It's have you ever been to Sedona?
I have, yes.
It snows, it's cold, it's up north, but yeah, it's beautiful. And so yeah, we're definitely looking at real estate up there.
Yeah. I went twice, both times in March for my husband's birthday, and it's gorgeous there. And we rented quads, got covered in red dirt everywhere. And it was such a it's so just breathtaking. You can just stop and look and just be in awe of what's in front of you. I am in Northern California and it is gorgeous in its own way. And it's, there's grapes, there's vineyards everywhere. Everything is green. Homes are tucked in hills. It's very different, but it's when you see a monstrosity like that, it's just mind blowing.
It is. And there's an energy there too, for sure. So
yes. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been to Yosemite in California, but the same type of thing. There's just these massive mountains and rocks and waterfalls, and you can just never stop looking up, and you just realize that you're just this tiny little small dot in the world. And it just puts things in such a beautiful perspective.
I agree. So good. So good. I want to go to Yosemite. That's definitely on the list.
Yes. Oh, it's gorgeous. Absolutely. You would absolutely love it. It's just, and I think well, you're used to the heat because you live in Arizona, but obviously like fall, I've been in fall and spring. I actually, the high school that I went to an alternative high school, and part of how we earned PE credits is we would camp in Yosemite for a week at the end of the school year. Mm-hmm. And it's such a gorgeous place anytime. I've been in the snow once. I do not recommend that because it's challenging to hike around.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Oh, so cool.
Okay. Last question. It's going to be a this or that, and we're going back to food. Okay. So are you like a chips and guacamole girl, or are you ice cream or cake? Like, what would be your end of life last meal? What are you going for?
Oh, if it's end of life, last meal,
like this is it. No
probably, more. Yes, definitely like a pizza cookie, like a cookie. I'm going sweet. So like cookie that's half baked with vanilla ice cream on top.
All right. Yeah. Me too. Yeah. I mean,
but if I wanted end of life and I was just out and I wanted to like enjoy a night with girlfriends, it would definitely be chips and guacamole and salsa.
Yeah. Sorry, like too much pressure there with that question.
Yeah, end of life. I know. I'm like, okay, where am I right now? Yeah. So definitely, if it's end of life, I'm enjoying that Pizookie for sure.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell my listeners where they can find you? Tell them a little bit about offers that you have. Just kind of throw that out there for them.
Absolutely. You can head over to Instagram. I hang out there most often at Felicia Romero, just my first and last name. My website, FeliciaRomero.com, where I have all of my different offerings there and things that I do. Currently, depending on when this drops, you can either come to a six-figure circle, which is a mastermind events, 2 days. I have 2 more that I'm hosting this year, or my goddess yoga retreat, which is a fun way to add that feminine embodiment and essence into your life and business. And I'm doing 1 more this year. And then if you are a fitness coach, or if you want to learn how to build an online business, I definitely have offerings and self-paced courses for that too. So that is it.
Gotcha. And I just realized I didn't even ask you about your goddess yoga. And I know that's such a huge part of your life now, almost unexpected, kind of is how I know it is like, yeah, I'll just try this out. No strings attached. And then boom, It was like, oh shit, I found like this thing I was looking for. Talk to me a little bit quickly about that.
Yeah, it was totally unexpected. It was one of those things where I left room for magic, and I was turning 40 in June of 2022, and I had seen a Instagram post about goddess yoga earlier that year, February of that same year. Mm-hmm. And something just called to me. Like it was this internal nudge that I just wanted to learn. No aspirations to teach it, like none. I had been a teacher for years. I'd coached classes. I taught, all the things, but I had no aspirations to do it. I just was really just doing it for me. And I gave myself permission to I want to learn this just for me. And
did you know what it was?
I did not even know. There was some bullet points about it. It was liberation and freedom and self-love and tapping back into sacred movements for your body. And at that time I was really craving that.
Yeah.
And so I went. As I was getting certified, I remember I talked about downloads and being able to see things. I could see myself teaching this to other women.
Yeah.
In a month of my certification, I was hosting my first workshop. I made all of the money back that I invested in my certification. Since then, I have hosted workshops. I don't teach at yoga studios, but I definitely love to do monthly events here at my house, full moon ceremonies and different things to just help bring women in community and also practice speaking and activating our throat chakra for healing our nervous system to be able to speak in front of women. And then to also use our bodies to tap into desire and pleasure and joy. And so it's been really magical. And I became a master trainer last year, and now I'm able to certify women to do the same. So it's been really fun and very unexpected. It's kind of like a side fun thing that I do that's been really fulfilling.
So tell me about the physical practice of it, because it's not traditional yoga or staying in a pose, correct?
Yeah, it's not traditional yoga, but there are some yoga elements, but it's definitely more belly dance inspired, sacred movement a lot of hip and heart circles, literally like removing, and it's one of the best ways to release deep emotional blocks in the body. I have seen women after class literally on the mat crying.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even know what's happening with their body because they're releasing so much, and it's things that are stored inside the body. So it's a really somatic healing practice. And, I've seen so many different stories within it, from women leaving really abusive relationships to stepping into their power, to calling in their partner, to gaining the courage to be seen, to even just getting these epic downloads when they're in class because they're moving their body in such a way that it allows them to tap into their creativity. It's been really amazing.
Yeah, somatic work can be really, really rewarding. And thank you for teaching that and like holding space for those women, because they need that, and they need somebody who can like guide them through and hold them accountable. And I think it's awesome. I love it.
No, thank you. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Good. Yeah. The next certification is going to be happening in June. So end of June.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so happy. It's so great to see your beautiful smiling face.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
All right, girl.